Thanks so much for tuning in to the Sustainable Brown Girl YouTube channel. This show exists to provide representation for women of color within the environmental space, to share their stories, and to inspire all to be more eco-friendly every day. I'm your host, Ariel Green. This is where you can see all of the full video podcast episodes. So be sure to subscribe to this YouTube channel and turn on notifications so you don't miss an episode. Also, go follow us on Instagram at Sustainable Brown Girl. Enjoy! Today's featured Sustainable Brown Girl is Julietta Gamboa, the owner of Gaea Solutions Inc, a company with the mission to reduce the output of waste generated by the restaurant industry. To achieve this, Julietta works with restaurants to develop efficient strategies and habits within establishments to ensure sustainable growth for years to come. Thanks so much for joining us today, Julietta.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
So I always like to start out with finding out how you became interested in sustainability.
Okay, well, I've always had a passion for the environment. I grew up on a farm in Tyrone, which is actually really close to Newnan.
Mm-hmm.
And so that kind of started my interest in all of this. And so when I began college, that's when I really started to pursue this career in the environmental field. And that's when I was exposed to sustainability almost on a daily basis. So that's when I really started to make lifestyle changes. And I think what drew me more to it than anything else was the idea of self sufficiency. And so
Mm-hmm.
that's where that started.
Did you study a sustainable major in college?
I studied environmental science,
Okay.
so I got a little bit of everything in there.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
awesome. And you mentioned too, that you're a chemist. What is that about?
So I work in a lab in Atlanta where we treat contaminated soil and water. So I
Oh,
get to see a lot of how our everyday choices impacts like the world around us in reality. Because
yeah,
sometimes it's hard to put two and two together when you don't see how it's affecting things. And so that's
exactly.
really also helped me to see this in a different light.
Wow. So
Mhm.
then, what led you to start Gaia Solutions?
So I come from a family of like restaurant owners, and these restaurants are 100% based on single-use products, so they don't use any like reusable plates or cutlery or anything like that. And so when I worked there during college, I was able to see firsthand how these plastics are like wasted, like in crazy numbers, really. And so in one summer, I started working at Center for Hard to Recycle Materials in Atlanta. And
Yeah.
so they recycle things like paint, batteries, stuff that you can't just send to any facility. And so that also started like turning my gears and saying like, how can I help this industry? Like, I don't want to be just working here. So I started helping my mom change one thing, small things at first, like straws or boxes, and then she eventually wanted to invest in my abilities. So we opened Gaia Solutions in 2020. Um, so, like 45% of the materials in landfills are actually generated by the food industry, whether it's food
Wow.
packaging or just food in general. We do waste a lot of it. And so, in an effort to reduce that number, I try to help restaurants by providing easy access to eco friendly packaging, composting, kitchen analyses, education. And so, that's kind of been my way of going about this.
Yeah. Wow. So what's the first step that, when you're working with the restaurant, what's the first thing that you do to help them?
So, first, I tried to do like a consultation because in the restaurant industry, you get bombarded by a lot of salesmen. And
Hmm.
so, they see you come up and with like a little card or something, they like automatically know because they think you're selling something.
Yeah.
So, I've been trying to approach it from an educational standpoint. And so, I go in, I do like an analysis of what they're wasting, try to get them to see that it's more of like, it's more, it's more for them than for me, for their environment. So
Right.
just try to get to see what they're really wasting in their facilities first.
And what would you say is the biggest waste that you see in, in the restaurant industry?
I would say that the food packaging is actually what causes most of it.
Hmm.
Besides like food, it is a big thing also, but especially during the pandemic when we had pretty much 100% carry out, that's when we saw that like increase in numbers of pollution from styrofoam boxes, plastic cups, all of that.
Right.
Mhm.
And, being in the South, it's, a lot of people are still using the plastic and the styrofoam, but when I go like, to California or something, you see them using better materials.
Right.
So, what's been your experience with talking to people, the restaurant owners, here? Do they care about the environment?
I would say that some of them don't. Like I've been shut
Yeah.
down by many, but also some of them do care to understand more about it.
Hmm.
And I would say that besides the restaurant owners, the biggest obstacle is the customers. I'm partnered with the restaurant that's in Sonoya, Georgia. I don't know if you're familiar.
Yeah. Hmm.
And they're, more southern. They have like different perspectives, I would say. And so I introduced paper straws to that restaurant, and the obstacle wasn't the owner; it was the customers. They were like,
Hmm.
"Yeah, we don't like this." Like in my experience at my mom's restaurant, they would be like, "This straw is like dissolving in my drink. It tastes like toilet paper." And so it's just about educating them too. So I feel like once we started putting out flyers like about why we were doing it, people were more understanding, and they were thanking us instead of complaining about it.
Well, that's good.
Yeah.
S I mean, I'm not a big fan of paper straws either. Are there other alternatives to paper, to paper
Yeah.
straws?
I mean, I feel like for me it was easier to say like, do I want to do plastic straws or paper?
Yeah,
But I mean there
right.
is like a negative effect to that as well.
Yeah.
They also make like these edible straws that you
Oh,
can find. They're a little more pricey, I would say, but I
yeah.
mean, I feel like in the future they'll be more accessible as well.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I think I saw some of those. It was made like out of pasta or something.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Okay.
I want to try
Wow.
those, but I haven't like seen any restaurant around here at least like using them.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that's interesting.
Hmm.
So we were talking about the different types of packaging. Normally, we'll see, plastic or styrofoam. What are some more sustainable solutions to food packaging?
So most of the biodegradable packaging that you'll find today is made out of like byproducts from the agricultural industry. So there's two main groups, which are bioplastic and then like plant fiber based. So within your bioplastic materials, you'll have two groups, which are recyclable polymers and biodegradable plastics. The biodegradable plastics can be decomposed by like methane, carbon dioxide, or water. And then the recyclable ones are usually made out of like starches or vegetable oil. And
Mm,
then your your plant fiber boxes are usually called bagasse. I don't know if you've heard of them,
mm-mm.
or just like wheat byproduct boxes as well. And so the bagasse one is made out of sugarcane fibers that are left over after extracting sugar, and
Wow.
the plant fiber ones are made. Well, the wheat straw ones are made from the stalks that are left after harvesting wheat. So it's stuff that would, usually be burned up or just thrown away. So they just put another purpose to it.
That's awesome. And
Mhm.
those plant fiber ones, are those at home compostable?
Yes, they are.
That's
The
awesome.
the bioplastic ones, you usually can't compost those in your backyard.
Right. Hmm.
The worst case scenario for like a plant fiber one is you throw it away into the landfill, but even then, it only takes 90 days to decompose, as opposed to like 500 years. So,
Right.
mm.
Exactly. So what's the cost comparison between, using plastic or styrofoam and then these other materials?
so it is more expensive to use
Right.
eco-friendly packaging. I would say right now, because of the way things are, there's not really much of a difference anymore because
Oh,
of like
really?
the shortages and stuff. It's all about even. But what I try to get people to understand is when you're trying to do something eco-friendly, there's always a high initial cost.
Hmm.
and you have to think about beyond like your lifetime, what's going to happen afterwards. So, and I mean, I've seen a lot of companies do like things that are eco-friendly, and it ends up benefiting them in the end. So it's just about how you perceive it, really.
Yeah, definitely. So when you are working with these restaurants, are you like seeking them out yourself? Do you mainly go after, like the smaller restaurants? Like, how do you find customers?
So I usually look for women-owned restaurants, small
Mm-hmm.
businesses. That's really my demographic right now. The restaurants that I'm partnered with now are all women-owned and Hispanic-owned. So
That's
I am
awesome.
trying to get into like minority-owned restaurants mostly, because I feel like those are the least like contacted by companies like this, because they don't
Yeah.
really see like a market for it. I don't know. So I'm trying to make it accessible to everyone. That's what I'm trying to do.
Yeah. That's awesome. I
Hmm.
love that.
Thank you.
And so when you are helping these restaurants with their packaging, or I guess, how do you find the sustainable packaging manufacturers?
So through a lot of research, and
Hmm.
it's been like a few years in the making. Just because sometimes like you can be misleaded by labels, and
Yeah.
companies trying to make it seem, greenwashing. They're trying to make it seem like it is, but it's not. So like one thing that I try to tell restaurants is that when you're looking for biodegradable or eco-friendly packaging, there's always going to be like people marketing false things to you.
Right.
So one thing that you might see is like corn PLA. That's what it's usually labeled, and it is better than plastic, but it still takes a long time to like. It doesn't even decompose; it just breaks down. So
Mm,
in the end, it's not really better.
I see.
So I just try to find businesses, kind of like, I don't know if you've heard of World Centric,
No.
but they're a B corporation, so they part of their income goes towards like not charities, but education and funding and stuff like that. So that's
Wow.
what I try to use, people that are doing other things beyond just selling me their product.
Right. Right.
Mhm.
That's awesome. So now I kind of want to shift away from the packaging talk because, like you mentioned, that's part of the problem, but food waste is also a big problem when it comes to the, restaurant industry.
Exactly.
So what are some ways that, restaurants can be better about that?
So I'm going to use this example a lot, but my mom's restaurant was really where I started like experimenting with all this stuff.
Hmm.
I think the first thing that, well, firstly, like every restaurant is unique. They all offer a different menu. They have a different way of serving their customers. So the best way to start is just kind of analyze your kitchen, see what you're wasting the most, whether it's single-use plastics or products, or what food, what byproducts are in your kitchen. So like in my mom's restaurant, she was throwing away a lot of limes, a lot of oyster shells, and shrimp peels. So what we started doing is, we saw that's what was accumulating the most every day. So we took all these limes and we made a surface cleaner. So we started cleaning our tables, countertops, all that with those limes that were left over.
Wow.
And then with the oyster shells, if you go to any like animal feed store, they're gonna have like crushed oyster shells because they're really good for chickens because they're high in calcium. So if you want
Hmm.
like a better quality egg, you'll feed them oyster shells. So we
Mm.
started crushing those up and feeding them to our chickens. And then shrimp peels, which I wasn't able to do this because of lack of resources, but you can make bioplastic out of them. So that's like
Wow.
something that's going on right now.
Wow, that's amazing. So you're finding new uses for the waste that your mom's creating in her restaurant. That's
Exactly.
amazing.
Yeah, thank you. So it's just about the restaurant really seeing what they're producing.
Right.
Hmm.
I've seen some like different apps and stuff, mainly, like in New York and LA and whatnot, where when restaurants have, leftover food, they'll donate it or they'll, sell it for a lesser cost.
Hmm.
What do you think about that?
I think that's also a great way to kind of divert that waste.
Mm-hmm.
There's also like some liability that comes with it. That's why a lot of restaurants don't do it, because
Okay.
if somebody gets sick from your food or, stuff like that. But I think that's also a great way. And
Yeah.
composting is also a good way to kind of repurpose your stuff, your waste.
Right, right. I feel like I saw somewhere that I don't know if it's the EPA, but I know the government is trying to do something about all of the food waste, and they realize that there's a problem with the restaurants having that liability,
Hmm.
and I think that they're trying to figure out a solution for that so that the restaurants can kind of
Yeah. What
be able
I've seen
to.
is there's more government like involvement, like they're trying to come
Yeah,
up with programs to help restaurants reduce that,
right,
whether it's packaging or food. So I really like to
right.
see that as well.
Yeah,
Mhm.
definitely. Yeah, because isn't it like what was the stat that you said earlier about food waste?
Which part?
Oh, sorry. It was like 40% of food is
Oh yeah,
wasted.
40%
Yeah.
food and packaging. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's
Wow. Yeah,
crazy. I
that's
mean,
a
that's
lot.
a lot. It's just sitting there in our
Uh-huh.
landfills instead of being used in another way.
Right, right. What are some other things that restaurants could do to prevent like food waste?
I think like besides repurposing things, you should also
Yeah.
kind of be more like aware of your portion sizes too, because that has a lot to do
Mhm.
with food waste. It's not even about like the kitchen, it's about your customers, like how much they're not eating. So I think maybe reevaluating your portions and seeing, like really calculating down to the, decimal how much you're using would really help as well.
Yeah. Wow, that's a good idea. I never even thought about that because, I mean, people say often, like when people come to the US from other countries, they're always
Mhm.
like, the portion sizes are huge.
Yeah, they are.
Yeah. I mean, and
But
sometimes it's nice because you want leftovers, but other times it's like, it doesn't work.
because I mean, the majority of people, I mean, I eat my leftovers, but I don't know about everybody else. So
Yeah.
that does contribute to it.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. Like I'm not
Mhm.
going to take 6 fries home.
Right. Exactly.
Okay. So, next I want to stay like on the topic of food waste, but there was one time, I mean, I always see litter, but
Mhm.
one thing that really sticks out in my mind was like I was walking down the street and I saw like a entire bag of like it was a red lobster bag that someone just threw onto the street and it's just like why? But anyway, my question is, how does the food industry waste impact its immediate environment and community?
So, like you said, people do that. I don't know how they do it. Like, how can you actually just, it's gonna sit there. So why do you
Right.
do it? But so it's hard for people to kind of, like I said, look beyond their own life. So
Yeah.
it's easy to walk out of a restaurant, throw your to-go box in like a trash can, and go about your day. But in reality, like there's a lot of stuff going on behind the scenes. So
Mhm.
when you throw away this box or this plastic cup, it's going into the landfill. There's already like material and other stuff decomposing there. So this food gets turned into methane, which is actually more harmful to our ozone layer than carbon dioxide. And then your styrofoam box or your plastic, whatever, it's not going to decompose. It's going to break down into smaller pieces. So then you
Yeah.
have microplastics entering your water system, your airways, your soil. So it does become a problem. It affects your local ecosystem, your food chain. So say like your soil, that soil in that landfill is already contaminated with microplastics and all types of things that come from the breakdown of styrofoam or plastic. There's a worm there. A bird eats the worm, then a bigger bird eats that bird or eats, yeah, and then we eat that bird. So it
Yeah.
does affect us even if we don't want it to.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah. They say we eat like a credit card worth of plastic. Is it every week or every month? I
Yeah,
forget.
something like that.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's
that's a
crazy.
lot.
And that can have like effects. Oh, well, also like plastic and styrofoam, like one of the ways that they get rid of them is by burning it.
Mm-hmm.
So all of that gets into our lungs, and then that can cause fertility issues, just a lot of health problems that maybe you don't see right now, but later down the road you're gonna be dealing with them.
Right. Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
And sorry to cut you off, but like where my mom's restaurant is, there's a landfill not more than 5 miles away from there. So it's
Wow.
like it's a very real problem that you have to think about.
Yeah,
Mhm.
exactly. Yeah, I mean, a lot of people don't really think about, they just think, oh, I'm going to throw this away. And it's like, okay, well, where's the way? It's like
Exactly.
out of sight, out of
Like
mind.
everything
But
goes somewhere, so you got to think about it
exactly.
like that.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. So let's say that a restaurant is just starting out, and they want to be more green, but maybe they feel like they don't have the budget for it. What are
Mhm.
some things that they can do to be more sustainable?
Well, like I mentioned before, just kind of seeing what your kitchen byproducts are would be a really good idea to start. Um, reducing your single-use plastics can be as easy as like creating a barrier, because some restaurants just have their cutlery or straws or stuff like that just out there in the open for people to grab. If you put them behind the counter somewhere where you can control it, even that can help.
Hmm.
Or even just switching like one thing, you know, like if you don't want to do something that's more expensive, you could even change like your napkins or your straws or whatever. At least you're trying. That's the whole point of it.
Right. Are there better napkins?
Well, there's more. There's like recycled paper, because then you have
Okay.
like the bleached, raw materials to start with. So it
I
does make
see.
a difference. Just depends.
Yeah. Okay, that makes sense.
Hmm.
And, I know that there's some, maybe not necessarily a big restaurant, but say it's like a bakery or something. And
Hmm.
typically they would put their, goods in plastic. What are some other types of materials that they could use other than plastic?
Well, you have for a bakery. I
Yeah.
haven't really like delved into that yet,
Hmm.
but there are materials made from like soy wax, because I see them use a lot of like it's like paper and plastic, like little wraps.
Hmm.
They have plant-based waxes that are actually compostable. There's a lot of plastic bags in general that are biodegradable, compostable, um, and it usually stems from like plant fibers or these plastics made out of like starch, like vegetable starch. So it's just about the really like the industrial industry and the agricultural industry to start giving their waste to a different purpose, and that's it.
Yeah,
Mhm.
definitely. Wow. Well, that is some really interesting information. I think I like to eat out, but I mean, I don't want to say I like to, but I happen to because I don't always cook. And,
Right.
I always feel bad about the waste that's being produced. And I like that you mentioned that the creating an extra barrier between the customer and like their products, that's a really good idea. And
Yeah.
then too, like when you're ordering something to take out, it's so automatic for restaurants to, like put napkins and cutlery and all that in your bag.
Right.
But I think that, if they stop doing that so much and, ask the customer if they need it, that would
Definitely.
create, that would eliminate a lot of waste too.
Definitely. It does make a difference, even a small change can help. So, I mean that like you will see like a reduction in the amount of times that you have to rebuy these products because you're not
Right.
using as much. So,
Right. Yeah.
mhm.
So what are some things that we as consumers can do to, help our favorite restaurants to get with the times and, start making better choices?
I would say that I guess like start pushing them. Not pushing them, but maybe leaving a comment or saying
Yeah.
like, "Oh, I would love it if my favorite restaurant had like more eco-friendly packaging," because that is something that people are looking more nowadays. They're not really. I mean, not that they're not consuming at restaurants that have conventional packaging, but they are looking for the eco-friendly stuff. So I would say
Yeah.
that, or maybe even like recommending Gaia Solutions and being like, oh, this company can help you. Stuff like that. It doesn't really take much because when I was working there, any small comment, we do take it into consideration. So,
Yeah, that's awesome.
mhm.
Have you noticed any trends, within the restaurant industry?
um, like in terms of what packaging they're using, or
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
so I feel like convenience is what drives this industry.
Hmm.
Um, People are looking for what's cheap and what's easily accessible as well. Sometimes
Yeah.
the products that I use, I have to wait like 5 to 6 days to actually be able to have them.
Hmm.
And so, if they don't want to wait, they're gonna go and get what's right there, which is plastic.
Yeah.
And um, I would say that's like the biggest thing. And also, right now with the pandemic, the dynamic has changed. So now I'm like, they're like, okay, I can't find this plastic product anywhere. So even if they don't want to, they'll switch to an eco-friendly one. And I see a lot of restaurants doing this, even if they're not necessarily doing it for the right reasons. It's just that that's what they're finding.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Well, that's interesting. So when the restaurants change to these, more eco-friendly practices, do they do they seem to enjoy it? Have they noticed any other benefits from it?
Well, I feel like it's a learning process also,
Hmm.
but I feel like they're trying to make differences that are going to help them in the long run as well. So, like, one of the restaurants that I'm partnered with is in Atlanta, and they do like vegan plates, and I would say they're probably one of the most eco-friendly restaurants that I work with. And so I feel like that helps them kind of brand themselves differently and helps attract a different demographic of customers as well.
Right, right. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, I mean, if I knew that a restaurant was using eco-friendly packaging, I feel like I would, go to them a
Right.
little
It
bit
is
more
more
often.
attractive. Like, I'd rather go somewhere like that for sure.
Yeah, exactly. So it's a,
Mhm.
win-win.
Exactly.
Well, Julietta, it's been so great being able to talk to you.
Thank
Um,
you, guys.
Thank you. So my last question is, what does being a sustainable brown girl mean to you?
So being a sustainable brown girl to me means like being a representative of my culture in this field. I want other, especially like young girls, to see that it's possible to make room for yourself in this industry, and it's possible to make a difference, and you can achieve anything that you like put your mind to. I think as I've gotten older, I feel more honored to be a brown girl in sustainability. It encourages me to live my truth every day and be authentic with what I do, and I hope that that reflects through my business, and I hope I can continue to help other people in the restaurant industry.
Yes, I love it. Yeah. I mean, yeah, representation is so important. So I think that's amazing. And again, I love that you're working with businesses that are owned by women and minorities. And that's just so amazing.
Thank you so much.
Yes. And let everyone know where they can find you online.
So you can visit my website at gaiasustainable.com, or you can visit my Instagram page, which is Gaia Solutions, and yeah, we'll go from there.
Yes. Yeah, please. If you have a restaurant or you want to recommend a restaurant,
Yeah,
please reach out to her.
definitely.
Yay. Thanks again for coming on. It was
Thank you so
amazing.
much. Thank you so much for your time.
Don't leave just yet. Click here to hear from another sustainable brown girl, or click here to watch the full playlist from this season.